Hello, welcome to the fourth edition of Lifft India Filmotsav and Awards World Cine Fest 2020. We are here with Ms. Vibha Chopra. She is the head of Global Syndication and International Film Distribution with ZEE Entertainment Enterprises Limited. And we are in discussion for changing patterns of releasing films for OTT and theatrical business. Hello, Vibha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here and having this very relevant conversation in today's times.
And thank you for accepting our offer to come on board.
Thank you.
We would like to begin with a brief introduction of the ZEE vis-a-vis what it's doing in the field of the film distribution.
So ZEE, many years back, actually, ZEE started producing films, and ZEE, in fact, was the first one to be producing and distributing films within India and outside of India. If you all probably remember Gadar, and then there were series of films thereafter, and I would say, 4 to 5 years back, ZEE started to sort of pick up the studio business again, both in terms of producing films, distributing films, whether it's in India and outside of India. So that not only, while producing films, ZEE could also take charge of distribution and ensure that every film gets distributed to its best potential, and there's no leakage in terms of marketing or distribution or getting the monies. So to basically make the entire process, to streamline the entire process, and to basically make it very transparent for producers and directors. That's what ZEE started getting into 5 years down the line. And today I can say that we're probably the leaders in film distribution in India and internationally.
So is ZEE in theatrical distribution only, or is it in digital distribution also?
I mean, ZEE is really your one-stop shop for everything. We have a television channel. We have ZEE5, which is our OTT platform, which has grown tremendously since we launched ZEE5, which I think was 3 years back, 3 or 4 years back. So we're into everything. We're into digital content. We're into theatrical distribution. Like I said, we produce films, we distribute films, we acquire films for just our OTT platform. We acquire film just for theatrical distribution. So it's a gamut of offering that we have as far as ZEE is concerned.
So since it's so vastly embroiled into a hardcore business, and especially dealing with a lot of economics over here, so is the film distribution system, is it a recognized part of an industry in India or abroad?
It is, and I think slowly and gradually it's really picked up in India. In India, it was not very systematic. It is recognized, but it was not very systematically done. And I think that's where ZEE sort of wanted to get into it. Outside of India, it is recognized, but 3, 4, or 5 years down the line, it again wasn't very systematic as far as Indian films are concerned. So you would acquire a film, you would give it to somebody, and they would sub-distribute, and then you really didn't know what happened to your film. And like I mentioned before, that's one of the reasons that ZEE wanted to get into it, to sort of create a process to make it transparent for producers so that when they did give their film to somebody like ZEE, they knew what happened to the film start to end, whether it made it into one screen or 10 screens or 100 screens. That's always been very transparent. So I would say that, we've while it wasn't that recognized for Bollywood films outside of India, I think we've streamlined that and we've put that process into place, and now it's as far as Bollywood films outside of India is concerned, it is recognized. In India, it was always recognized.
How is theatrical distribution different from the digital distribution?
They're two very different set of audience that you're catering to, or what the audience and how the audience wants to watch content. Theatrical distribution obviously is the big screen distribution where you have to plan how many screens, how many shows, which market, whether we're talking about internationally, how many markets you want to get into. Is it a Hindi film? Is it a Tamil film? So therefore, your distribution really depends on that. So there's a whole lot of planning that goes as far as theatrical distribution is concerned. Digital distribution, again, like I said, it's a different set of audience that or it's a different need that you're catering to, not necessarily a different set of audience. I could watch a film on theater and on the OTT platform, but you're really catering to a different need of mine, which is to watch a film on the tablet or or my phone or various OTT platforms. So it's different to that extent.
Uh, so, which screening is more beneficial, digital or theatrical?
Both are really, I've said it many number of times. I think filmmakers, producers, distributors need to realize and identify what film caters to which medium the best. Uh, Thanks to COVID, I think there is a lot of, and we spoke about it briefly when we chatted. I think a lot of filmmakers, producers are recognizing the fact that, digital is also an important audience, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to carve your niche in that segment. So as far as that is concerned, I think it's very important to realize if it's is it a theatrical film versus is it just a digital film, and there is not a good or a bad thing in either. It is just understanding um, what need does your film cater to, or which audience set is your film really catering to. For example, if it's a film like Good News, or if it's a period film like Bahubali, I really want to see it on the big screen, and therefore it can't be a digital only film, while I do want to see it on digital as well, because I want to relive that moment, or I want to keep watching it again and again, or for my second, third, fourth viewing, it needs to be on digital as well. Then there are smaller films, and again I'm just using the word smaller, not necessarily saying that digital does mean smaller films. There are films that you can enjoy on your tablet or your television screen by your various OTT platform. So it is very important to understand and realize which medium is your film well suited for. And again, sometimes it's the budget of the film. Do you want to spend millions or crores of rupees on marketing a film that you think may not even recover that much money? Or would you really want to put it on digital, where you think you're straight away making or recovering your cost of production and making generating revenue for yourself or your distributor, for your producers? So one one really needs to evaluate the economics of it and identify what film is suited for which medium best, and which medium therefore is going to give you the best ROI for that particular film.
So, how? What would you suggest to the filmmaker? Should they release a film simultaneously in a theater and on the digital platform, or there should be a little of bit of a difference, time difference between the two releases?
There's always been time difference. Before COVID, we would release a film in theater, and after 16, depending on where you're releasing it. I think in India it's 8 weeks. Internationally, it's 16 weeks, and in some places it's even 20 weeks or 24 weeks. So depends where you're releasing it. There are norms set by the theaters themselves of what holdbacks you need to have, and you do need to have those relevant holdbacks so that it lives its life on theater. Once it transitions from theater to, let's say, digital, it can fully live its life on digital as well, and then you take it to satellite, or take it to satellite before you take it to digital. It really depends on what your recovery strategy is for that film.
So, how has the digitization changed the film industry?
I think it's. I think I've always said that it's changed the film industry to a point that a lot more content is now accepted. A lot more producers, filmmakers are able to tell their stories, which does not meet the norm of a theatrical release per se. And I think it is really become about, this is a story I want to tell. This is a film I want to make, rather than saying, I'm going to make a film for the theater, right? So I think it's changed to that extent, saying, this is a film I want to make. This is a story I want to tell. This is the actor that I want to cast. This is a director I want to take, rather than saying, this is an actor that will give me box office returns, right? So I think it's changed. To that extent, where you're really not just talking in terms of your theatrical box office revenue. You're really talking about the kind of films that you want to make. And we've seen a lot of successes in the last 2 years, where storytellers and filmmakers have told the stories that they want to make, not keeping the medium in mind, and that sort of is now secondary. So they've made a film, and they think that it best suits digital distribution, or it best suits theatrical distribution, and that comes later. And I think that's how it's sort of evolved over the last 2-3 years, and that's how digitization is sort of changed it. And like I said, a lot more people are able to tell their stories via the digital medium.
Yes, yes. So, has the VOD impacted or changed the style of filmmaking, and especially because of the pandemic? And has it brought in for the theatrical distribution the change due to the pandemic?
So I think, like I said, style of filmmaking definitely has changed, and that's because there's no set grammar that this is how you need to make. Take this actor, take this director, and take this story and make your film. I think the style has changed because people are able to experiment. They're able to make the film that they want to make. They're able to tell the story the way they want to tell, and they're able to experiment. Sometimes go more overboard, saying, I believe that this kind of a concept will work, whether it's horror, whether it's thriller, whether it's very niche subject, because there's wider audience that you can cater to on OTT. So I think there's sort of freedom of, for a lack of a better work, I think there's freedom of filmmaking and creativity that was sort of not 100% there when you're really just thinking in the realm of theatrical box office numbers, and no, this actor won't work, this director won't work, or the story won't work. So I think there's a lot more freedom, and with that freedom they've seen a lot more acceptability, and that's really, that shift has been seen thanks to, I think digital has a bigger role to play in that. There's so many small digital gems that we can say that have really changed the perception of, wow, this was a great film while it didn't release in theaters. So I think that's where the shift is. And as far as theater getting impacted by digital, um, well, right now
And
everything
pandemic
is,
especially.
yeah, I think most theaters, as we know, across the world were shut, and I think needless to say that that's one sector that's really, really badly affected due to pandemic. It's shut. The occupancy is not same as before, and there is a chicken and egg situation where now the theaters, even though they are starting to open up, they've not been able to open up to full capacity or full audience, even up to 50%, because there are no bigger films. And audience obviously will come if there are bigger films, but that's, who will take that risk first. And it is a huge risk, because if you're going to make a film which would have delivered a 300 or a 500 crore box office, you're not going to release that film knowing that it may not even um, deliver one fourth of that money. So it's a huge risk for filmmakers to take. So I guess everyone's waiting for the audience to come back, and audience in turn are waiting for probably a big film to come in theaters for them to take that risk of coming to theaters. Um, we've seen slowly and gradually audience are coming back, but not to the full capacity, and that can't happen till the time that you see big films releasing. Like I said, it is a catch 22, and even bigger films, will they really get the kind of audience that we saw pre COVID? So it's a very, very different world that we live in.
So, do you mean to say that there is dearth of content for theatrical release at the moment?
Not really, because a lot of the theatrical content has gone to OTT as well. That was meant for theatrical distribution has gone to OTT, because obviously there's salaries to be paid. There they need to recover their monies, and the cost of money is involved, so they can't be sitting on a made film for long. And how long, nobody really could say, right? um,
Yeah.
it could be, is it going to be another 3 months, is it going to be another 4 months? And when filmmakers and producers decided to let go of their films for OTT in, starting in March, April, they really didn't know how many months, is it going to be 5 6 a year, and they couldn't afford to let the cost of monies keep piling up. So at the moment, I don't know if there's a lot of films in pipeline for theatrical distribution. There are a few, but not really a lot. And again, who's going to take that risk of coming in theaters when they know the audience are simply not there? The smaller films are obviously releasing in theaters, but even there the numbers are very, very low. Some bigger studios probably can start to take that risk, but not, but you, like I said, you need the firing from all directions, big, small, big mainly.
So in this kind of a scenario, how does the ROI work out? I mean, the return of on investment, how is it made? And is there any kind of a transparency involved in this?
There's always a transparency involved. I mean, the ROI basically is through all your mediums, right? Your first, and again, I'm going to talk pre-COVID and post-COVID.
Yes, yes.
Your first set of monetization is your theatrical distribution. After your theatrical distribution, you give it to an OTT player, and then you do your music theatrical distribution run is done. Now those deals are changing, which means that your theatrical distribution is done away with, and most films are going direct to OTT. So basically, it's the OTT players that are doing the heavy lifting of sorts to recover the cost of the film, which would be taken up by theatrical distribution.
How does the payment to the producers work out? What is the payment structure or module adopted for that?
So it's different it depends on a deal to deal. It depends how the filmmaker or the producer has struck the deal. In some cases they get it after the film is released. In some cases they get some portion of it before the film is released. In some cases it's given to, a portion of them is given to them once the deal is struck. So there is no standard payment module that exists in our industry. It really varies.
Uh, so since there are not big project films which are releasing in theaters and theaters have opened, does it mean that theaters are opening doors to the independent filmmakers?
They are, I think they were always really opening doors to independent filmmakers, but I think the independent, like in the West, right, there are theaters, or there are cinema houses specifically for independent films. So you know that if you are that audience, you go to that theater to watch the film. In India, that's really not, how do I say, that doesn't exist, right? And I think as far as recovering monies, putting your film in theaters for independent filmmakers, I think the economics really does not work out, and I think that's why there are not very many independent filmmakers reaching out to theaters or vice versa. Will that change? Honestly, it really remains to be seen. But like I said, the smaller films, and we've released a few, that so I can say that are not necessarily going to get the audience. When I say smaller, I'm also counting some of the films that we've released, but it's really the bigger films that will now have to come and disrupt the market and bring the audience back. The independent films, while they're really good, but I don't know if they can disrupt the audience and disrupt the current situation and bring the audience from home to the cinema theaters.
Uh, of late, we've seen the advent of these short films. There are multiple short films being made on pretty good budgets also, and they are doing very
Yes.
good on channels like YouTube or independent like Vimeo or private screenings, and there people are raving about those films. I mean, at our festival also, we get so many short films from across the world in all the languages, which are just
Yes.
amazing and outstanding, and they tend to be sometimes even better than the feature film. Um,
Yes.
is there a market for that? And do you think your organization can or is willing or will look into supporting this?
So I think short films across the world is now accepted. People are watching it. There's a huge demand for it, not just in India, but I think globally. And I don't think just it's not whether our organization supports it or not. I think every OTT platform is looking for um, a short film story that they think best suits their platform. So I think there is a need for it, and I think most OTT platforms sort of are looking for it, whether it's India or outside of India.
So, how is Z creating pathways for the distribution system, either theatrical or digital?
So, like I said before, Z has already created a pathway as far as distribution is concerned. We've sort of created certain processes. We've gone direct to exhibitors rather than taking a route of a sub distributor, which most companies do. We've established our own distribution system, whether it's in India, which is a very difficult market because there are so many territories, there are so many smaller markets that it's very difficult to get into, or whether it's outside of India. The story is similar outside of India. It's always been governed by sub distributors who you've never met, you don't know. So Z sort of gotten into direct to exhibitor wherever that we could, and I can say that at least in the international market, in 90% of the markets we're direct to exhibitors. Maybe 10% in really remote small markets where we're not able to go. We have a sub distributor arrangement. So yes, so I think Z has really created pathway as far as distribution is concerned.
Since you mentioned territories, then it will be nice to know that how many territories are there for the theatrical release in India, and have they
Um,
increased or decreased in the past or the recent times?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I can say that it's definitely, increased in the sense that, of course, India by itself has a long way to go as far as number of theaters and screens is concerned. But it's obviously territories have increased because acceptability of films by different regional languages across has gone up. By that I mean that today a Tamil film is watched by somebody in Bombay and Delhi, while it used to be a South phenomena. So the universe for a Tamil film within India has really increased. Similarly, for a Marathi film, thanks to films like Sairat and Bahubali now, a Marathi and Tamil film is not only watched by their own audience. I think it's sort of transcending beyond local regional language audience. So I think to that extent, the territory has increased, and there are no language boundaries to that extent. And I think it's further growing. Um, if it's a good film, it's a good film. Everybody wants to watch it, and so there's no language. There's less. I wouldn't say no, but there's less of a language barrier, and so is the case outside of India. There are Bahubali is accepted by territories that are mostly you have Hindi speaking diaspora, or territories that do have Tamil, Telugu as their first language. So I think the universe per se of Indian films, whether it's inside of India or outside of India, is increasing, and we hope that it keeps increasing.
Uh, every film requires promotion, whether a theatrical release or a digital release.
Yes.
Um, how does the costing work out for a P&A? Is it borne by the producer, or is it borne by the distributor, or who?
Again, it really depends on your discussion. The comfort, who's willing to spend what amount. So sometimes the producer spends the P&A. Sometimes it's a distributor that spends the P&A. So it really it's subject to the deal that one probably struck. So it varies.
So, is there a difference in the costing for a P&A for a theatrical release as opposed to a digital release?
Yes, there is. There is because there are a lot of factors in both. Like there is VPF, there is uh, uh, logistics. There is marketing. Um, uh, what marketing you need to do to get people from home to theaters. That's very different to sort of a digital marketing. So it's different. In theatrical you need a very different P&A, and in digital you need a very different P&A.
So, Z is into both digital distribution as well as theatrical distribution.
Yes. When you say digital distribution, it's actually our own digital platform where we buy movies for our own OTT platform, which is Z5.
Okay. And Z5 is open for independent filmmakers as well.
Yes, it is. It all depends on whether that story appeals to us, or whether that sort of is in line with our overall positioning of Z5. Yes.
I asked this specifically because as a festival, we get films from 55. This year, we got films from 55 countries. I wish pandemic
Wow.
wasn't there. We would have definitely got films from more countries. We have shortlisted about over 400 official selected films, which
Wow.
we have further shortlisted to over 100 nominations for the Lift India Awards. We will
Wow.
be announcing the awards on the 25th of December this year. And
Great.
having so many films from around the corner in all the languages, I'm absolutely surprised at how they don't find their ways on the OTT platform. Uh, when we talk about your organization, uh, I generally find either they're predominantly in English or Hindi. I seldom see foreign languages or the other languages, let's say, uh, being seen on the OTT platforms. So, do you see an opening for the other languages on the OTT?
I definitely see, if you're talking about Z5, and if you're talking about other OTT platforms in India, I think now there's plethora of languages that sort of sit on the OTT platform, whether it's English, Hindi, or regional languages, or even Korean, or other languages of the world. So I think depending on what your positioning is, and depending on what your need of the audience is, I think every OTT platform is open to other languages, rather than saying that it's only going to be English and Hindi and other regional language. So I think thanks to the OTT emergence that it has in the last 1 or 2 years, I think it's opening everything. It's making language sort of becomes secondary. I've said that many a times. Language becomes secondary, and it's the content that sort of becomes primary, and that's what uh, people are looking at. Whether it's in terms of selection of content, or or buying, acquiring, selling. I think that's the way in which sort of the world is moving towards.
I'll take this opportunity to market our own festival with you, which is that since we have so many films and there's some brilliant
Yes.
films out there, and uh, would it be possible to divert these films for acquisition for your organization from our
We
Lift India
definitely
Festival?
we Can definitely, like I said, then again, it's to what the acquisition heads at that point in time are looking for the platform. But definitely, we they can review and at least, if nothing else, give you some sort of feedback.
That's good to hear because we have a lot of Iranian films, uh, European films, American films, Korean films, Australian films, and likewise, and they're just outstanding. And I'm
Great.
really desiring that they see a platform, uh, and I really look forward to Z for providing this kind of a platform.
Yes, and I'm sure they'll be open to at least reviewing and giving feedback.
Sure. So, how strong is Z in the OTT space currently? Because we have Netflix and Amazon, who are like big boys, known as. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, so how strong is Z right now, and how strong is it
In
trying
the
to get?
Indian, yeah. Of course, we want to be the leaders in the OTT space. There's no denying that. And wherever, Z has sort of put its hands and head into, it's sort of emerged as a leader, whether it's making films, whether it's producing films, whether it's getting into distribution, whether it's getting into television. So I think same is the ambition for OTT. And I wouldn't really call it ambition because in India, I think we are one of the biggest. I think we're even, our numbers are even higher than Netflix and Amazon. Uh, so I think, while we do call them the big boys, I think in India Z5 would be the big boy, and I think the ambition is to really have a strong leadership position in India and across the world.
So, do you see the theaters? Will they be obsolete in the near future?
I don't think so. I think theaters. I've said it. I'm going to say it again. I think it was just bad timing for theaters. Unfortunately, nobody in their wildest dream would have thought of such a pandemic ever. And I think people, there are certain movies that one does enjoy on the big screen. It's a very different viewing experience than one gets, right? I could watch a movie at home on my phone, on my television set, but the experience that I get when I go to the theater, I don't know anybody who's sitting across me or in the whole theater, but there is a very different um, vibe or community, sense of community that you get when you're watching a film in the theater. So, like I said, you couldn't watch Bahubali would not have been as big as it did if it didn't, come or release theatrically, and so many other films, right? For a lack of a, not trying to give too many examples, but there's so many films that you would enjoy in a theater. Um, so I think theaters are not going to go away. I know a lot has been written, but I think we can take learning from markets where theaters have. It's been a while where theaters did open, and we see that audience have started to come back. Now it is just a matter of how safe one feels and how soon one wants to get back to their normal life. And also the other very big aspect is when big films will feel comfortable coming to theaters, and when all of that will start to happen, I think we'll see theaters really bouncing back, if not today, if not tomorrow. um, Definitely 3 to 4 months down the line, I'm pretty confident theaters have to bounce back. They can't really go away. So
Do you mean to say that would Z be foraying into establishing more theaters?
we don't we Z does not establish theaters. We primarily collaborate with the existing theaters and exhibitors. So that's what our forte is.
So, what is the best way to monetize a film in a theater?
As in, sorry, I best way to monetize a film.
In a theater.
I'm not sure I understand what that really means.
What it means is there a formula where you can get the box office rolling, or it's very
There's no
hypothetical and
form.
it's a film
There's
to film?
no. There's no form. Honestly, everybody wishes that there was a formula, but there is really no formula in theatrical distribution. So it's really up to each film how, when you, as a distributor, how best you can gauge. The distribution or make the distribution strategy for that film, but there's really no formula.
Great. So that brings to the end of my question list. And I would like to know if there is anything that we've missed out and that you would like to convey to the audience here. That would be very great.
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I just want to end it with the note that this pandemic has obviously taught everybody a lot in terms of that there is a platform beyond theatrical distribution, and that needs to be explored. And I think it's given filmmakers an additional platform of digital distribution. I think filmmakers and producers and distribution have to be open to what might be the best distribution for their film, whether it's theatrical or digital. I think that should be secondary. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Vibha, for sharing your precious time for Lifft India. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.